The No Nonsense Roundtable. It's a weekly show broadcast on Rochester, New York's 50,000-watt iHeart radio station, News Radio Wham 1180. The host, Dom Genova, interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. What you are about to hear is a recording of a previous broadcast without the breaks and commercials. Now, here's host Dom Genova.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host, every Saturday right here on News Radio Wham 1180. And all the past shows, like I like to remind you, are on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com. Now, today I have one of my favorite people. You might be one of my favorite mammals, all told. So I have Chris Bensch, who is the chief curator of the the Strong National Museum of Play. Back for the second or third time, I don't know which, but you're kind of a constant favorite of the fans.
I am honored to be back so many times, Dom.
Well, if you're honored, you think too much of this show, which is one of the nice things because you're a nice guy.
All right, I try to be.
Well, let's assume that people have not heard any of the other shows that you were on and give them a little bit of an idea of how you got to be the curator of the Strong National Museum of Play. I want to make sure I say that right. And a little bit of a story of the organization itself.
Well, I am an oddity because when I was in 8th grade, I wrote an essay that when I grew up, I wanted to go to basically museum studies school and become the curator at a historic house. And lo and behold, that is precisely what I wound up doing. And I was working at this historic house in Utica, New York, when a job opening occurred here at the Strong Museum. And I went for that way back in 1989, and I've been here ever since. I'm the lucky person who's the longest tenured staff member at the Strong.
Okay, a historical house in Utica. Okay, what?
It was part of the Art Museum, what's now called the Munson, formerly Munson Williams Proctor Arts Institute in downtown Utica, and the 1850 house next door of the wealthy people who founded that art museum. I was the guy running that space and doing things like creating croquet on the lawn events in the summer and a solve-it-yourself murder mystery for Halloween.
Well, that sounds like fun.
It was a lot of fun, and it gave me a great springboard to come out of a little pond to a bigger pond and to become part of a bigger staff, a bigger place, and bigger possibilities here at the Strong Museum.
Well, it's certainly a great organization, a great museum, and it's absolutely huge right now. But how did it start years ago?
We are fortunate to have had a wealthy benefactor. We would all like to have those in our lives. Mm-hmm. And Margaret Woodbury Strong was the only child of wealthy parents. Nice gig if you can arrange it for yourself. And her parents were both collectors. She grew up collecting. She went through some unfortunate parts of her life where her husband and daughter predeceased her, and she turned to collecting to fill that emotional void. And she had a big house. She had the largest single stockholder. She was the largest single stockholder in Eastman Kodak.
Oh, that'll do it.
So that was a good thing in the 1950s and 60s. And she could collect whatever she wanted. And what she wanted were things that fascinated her, whether that was dolls, whether that was toys, whether that was 500,000 postage stamps, 300,000 buttons. So we are the inheritors of that massive collection that lots of it focused around things that people wanted to play with.
Well, this compels, I'm in a silly mood today, so this compels a question. Was it all organized really nice and neat, or was she a hoarder?
It was organized well, but I do think she was a hoarder. If that show had been around, she would have been a whole season. She would not have just been an episode because she had hundreds of thousands of items. A team from what was then called Park Burnett Auction House came, and it took a team of 17 people a year just to inventory what remained in her house at the time of her death.
Well, keeping it all dusted and taken care of so it doesn't deteriorate had to be a major task too. Does she have like a staff that did this?
She had a staff. She She got a charter from the New York State Board of Regents in 1968, a year before she died, to found a museum. So she knew that she wanted to share this with the public, and she was really generous with her bequest in her estate that she was giving the bulk of her fortune to make this museum happen, a brand new museum, all based on her collection.
Now, did she have family herself? Was she married, have kids, or not?
She was married. Her daughter and her husband both predeceased her, so she had no heirs than the charitable institutions around Rochester that she supported, and the primary amount went to the museum and its founding.
That's fascinating. One of the things I love about this show is that you learn these things about Rochester that nobody was really aware of. As an aside, the house you're staying in here used to be the summer home of the Sibley family, and do you know what the Sibley family was famous for back in the 1800s?
Was it the department store? Or?
No, one of the co-founders of Western Union.
Oh, I did know that. Yes.
Another famous Rochesterian, right?
Right.
There you go. And it's like one of these things like, who knew? So when did you get to where you are now, the physical location of where you are now?
The museum opened in downtown Rochester in 1982 in a brand new purpose-built museum building, and we've been on that urban renewal land ever since and have kept expanding, as you may be aware.
Oh, yeah. There's a big year for you this year, right?
It was an incredible year. We almost added a third to our footprint. So headed for 400,000 square feet inside our building.
400,000 square feet. I mean, that's like the airport.
It's a lot of space.
Yeah. Well, do you have spare space, right? Well, you must have built with spare space because you got more stuff coming in, right?
We did. I really wanted them, instead of filling in the inner loop, to just put a roof on it and give me all of that. No one went along with that idea. So I have to settle for slightly less new storage space.
So it was June 30th that you opened the doors for all this, right?
That's right. June 30th of 23.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that are that are new. I mean, what do you got new there?
We have two giant exhibits about video games. One kind of a more traditional history museum that celebrates the impact that video games have had on American culture and society and business. Video games are a bigger business than movies and music put together. So this is a big deal in just commercial terms, let alone the cultural impact. And the second exhibit is an immersive one that lets you feel like you're a character in a video game. You get an RFID bracelet that tracks your progress, you create an avatar, and then you follow through with challenges that make you feel like you're Mario or Sonic. Do you need to jump? We've got a reason for you to jump. Is there a puzzle you need to solve? That's part of this. And there are dozens of things that you can do in this space. Track yourself, outdo your friends and family that are there with you, come back again and see if you can beat your own score. It's a great experience. It's really in-depth and fun for people of all ages.
Oh, yeah. Is this like one of these things where they put those little golf balls all over you? And is that what that is?
It is not, but there is technology that implants you in various sorts of situations. Are you playing dodgeball? Are you having a challenge? Who can push the buttons faster? Are you outrunning some kind of scary creature that is after you? All of those kinds of things that let you feel like you're in it. You're not just watching this happen on a screen. You're in the midst of it.
Wow, we're about ready to head into a break, and we're going to be talking more about play when we get back. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here with Chris Bensch today, the chief curator of the Strong National Museum of Play. You have to have like the fantasy job. I mean, you get this giant toy box.
It is. That's why I've been there 34 years. I take museum studies students through sometimes, and I tell them, Don't look for me to be out of this position anytime soon. Good luck finding another job.
You've been there how many years?
34 as of March of this year.
Oh my God, you look great. Your odometer must have been rolled back. I mean, you look.
I started when I was 12. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, no, you look great. So we were talking about the new things at the Museum of Play, and so go ahead. There's you were talking about the interactive part of the place you have there. Let's talk about the rest of the stuff.
Well, one of the big things that has been a huge hit since our expansion opened at the end of June is what we call Hasbro Game Park. It's our first ever outdoor experience, and it's part of the museum admission. And it's a space that's centered around 8 classic tabletop games. So Monopoly, Candyland, Game of Life, and there are oversized elements for all those games that you are in the middle of. So for instance, you probably remember the classic spinner on a Game of Life board.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a life-size version of that is a merry-go-round, not like the merry-go-rounds that I grew up at playgrounds in my childhood that you got flung off of with centrifugal force. This is one that is at ground level. So are you in a wheelchair or a mobility scooter, you can roll right on. And it has a dome that essentially looks like the Game of Life spinner. Or if you want something more that tests your agility, we have giant Jenga blocks from that toppling tower game that are spread across the ground, and you can balance your way across these tipped Jenga blocks to have yourself a little activity there. There's an 18-foot long Scotty figure, that classic playing piece from Monopoly. That's a perfect photo op. Or maybe you want to feel like you're that character at the corner of Monopoly who's gone to jail. You're behind bars. It is a great thing for your Facebook page or your Instagram feed.
So how many people do you think, you probably can't give it a real detailed answer, but how many people from out of town do you get as opposed to people from in town? Do you have any idea? My
last time I checked or was aware of, it's about a quarter of our attendance is from people outside the Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo kind of circle. So people come from all over the world to the Strong Museum. We get guests every year from every continent except Antarctica. We need to reach out to more penguins to boost our attendance on that front. But we're expecting that with marketing, with good word of mouth, we're hoping that within 2 or 3 years, we'll be getting 1 million people a year to the Strong Museum.
Well, I think one of the things that people need to realize about it is that it's not just for kids. I mean, people come in for the jazz festival or whatever. I mean, bop over to the Museum of Play because you can have a good time as a kid, but also as an adult too. But the other thing about it is that the museum is displays and is activity both. So I mean, you get this really nostalgic feeling when you go there and you see a toy that you saw or you played with when you were 5 or 10 years old, and it takes you back there and kind of gives you a warm fuzzy.
It does. And one of my favorite refrains from people who are 8 or 88 is, I had one of those.
I know.
Maybe something they hadn't thought of in years, and it just absolutely powers them back in time. And it's a thrill to see over and over again. I love art museums, but very few people have the chance to go in and say, oh, it's just like our Monet. But we have things that resonate with people in their lives. Did they have it? Was it the thing that was always on their wish list and they never had the chance to get that item? It's really powerful.
Oh, yeah. And I go there and I go, I had that experience. I go, stick. Oh, my Lord. Stick. Nita, look, stick.
We're honored that you noticed the stick. 2007 inductee to the National Toy Hall of Fame.
Oh my God! Well, at our Christmas show, we had Santa, and I asked Santa if he ever handed out a stick, and he I don't know, he dodged the question. It sounded like a politician at the time. But there is play, and there's play. We were talking during the break about it's not just child play,
right? And 3 nights a year, we have something called Happiest Hour that is for people 21 and over. We have grown-up beverages, and you don't have to feel bad shoving a 6-year-old out of the way because you want to run the cash register in our miniature Wegmans supermarket.
Or no, go over that again. What?
3 nights a year. It's called Happiest Hour. And we typically have about 1,300 people who buy advance tickets to be at this big event. Our next one is at the start of December. Usually that one is coupled with an ugly sweater contest as well. And there's grown-up beverages. You can play everything. You can feel like a child again.
Oh, that sounds really neat. Well, I mean, I guess the zoo has Zoo Brew or whatever.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. And you say you do this 3 times a year?
We do, and we're doing one even sooner. It's called Be a Kid Again night on September 28th. So that is an opportunity for anyone 18 and up to come to the museum and spend the evening having fun. Already half of our attendance each year is grown-ups, some of whom come with families, some of whom are there on their own. This summer, we've been open till 8 o'clock on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. We are a date night destination for 20-somethings. If you don't want to go someplace noisy or where you need to drink, it's somewhat where if you're meeting somebody, you can get to know them, you can talk about your history, you can have a pleasant experience, and we're a great place for that kind of activity as well.
And it makes you seem like you're a really nice guy.
Right. Here's a great tactic. Use this.
That's right. Yeah. Let's take you to the Museum of Play. And it's like, oh, what a nice guy he is. And then you could probably get a date. One of the things about the museum is that, let's talk about the ancillary things. You have a butterfly place.
Our butterfly garden continues to be a huge hit. If you want a little taste of the tropics without the need to buy a plane ticket, it can be part of your experience at the Strong for a small added fee, as can our high adventure ropes course that takes you up 3 stories. I never thought I would be looking out my office window at a zip line, but that is the reality of working at the National Museum of Play.
Oh yeah, I was there. I was there a few months ago, and I'm sitting there having a burger from
Bill Gray's.
Bill Gray's, and I'm looking at these people up there on the zip lines, and I'm like, okay.
I have not done it myself. That is not
really? Even you haven't done it?
No. I figure I will do it somewhere, but if I am ashamed of how I react, it can't be at my workplace.
No. I'm a little bit of a marketing guy. We have to have some type of fundraiser
where
we get
Chris up there.
You get Chris on, get Chris on there, and we'll get like WHEC or something like that to come by and take a video.
All right. We'll work that out, Dom.
Yeah, and we can be talking about that during the break, and that's what we're about to get into, the news break. So we'll see you right after that. Well, we won't see you. We'll hear you. Well, no, we won't hear you either. You'll hear us right after this. Well, welcome back to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're talking to Chris Bensch, the chief curator of the Strong National Museum of Play. And we left the last segment, we were talking about the zip line, which is right next to Bill Gray's, which is, I found out, right next to another food court that you have there. I didn't realize that was there.
We have a brand new food court area that we call Main Menu, following up on our sort of video game theme for our expansion. And it's a space where you can get some healthy choices, some salads, some vegetarian items, and as well as some really delicious, fun foods that appeal to people of every generation. And if that's not enough, if you run out of energy before you get to Hasbro Game Park at the other end of the building, we have a new space called Puppy's Game Cafe that has coffee and beverages and snacks of different sorts so that you can boost yourself up. You can sit down, and because it's a game cafe, you can sit down and play board games, tabletop games like Connect 4 or Candyland or you name it. We give you fun things to do, or you can take your food outside to the picnic tables in Hasbro Game Park on a nice day.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't start talking as soon as we can about the Toy Hall of Fame. Because that's going to be coming up pretty soon, right?
It is. We are poised in mid-September to announce the 12 finalists for this year's induction into the National Toy Hall of Fame. Always an exciting time. We got as usual, thousands of nominations for, I think this year it was about 600 different toys that people thought should be in the Hall of Fame. We have done the hard work of boiling that down to a dozen that hold up to our three big criteria: longevity, recognition factor, and play value. Toys that encourage learning, creativity, discovery, socialization, all those good qualities.
So go over that again. Longevity and what and what?
Longevity. So toys that have been on the market at least 20 years. So kids and their parents could both have grown up playing with it.
Okay. Now, is exclusively, they don't have to be, this isn't like the Baseball Hall of Fame where you have to be retired for 5 years. That's one of the criteria.
That's one of the criteria. Okay. Second is recognition factor. So even if you didn't have a teddy bear or a radio flyer wagon or a dollhouse,
you know what it is.
You know what it is.
Okay.
And third, these are toys that have really good play value. They're the ones that kids want to keep playing with, whether that's a game like Monopoly or Candyland or Twister, whether that's Crayola crayons or the Easy Bake Oven or skateboards. All of those are in the Hall of Fame because they cultivate learning, creativity, discovery, socialization, things that really make it endlessly repeatable.
Yeah, and that's got to change with the culture, though. I mean, a cap gun now probably would not. Would a cap gun now be inducted?
It would,
or I mean, that's a.
It would not. We do have a sort of behind the scenes qualification that you need to be a toy or game that is safe for its intended audience.
Okay, so jarts are not in it.
Jarts are not in, as much as I love that game. And every time I'm with my family in Ohio, we play jarts. And I am here to say it taught me very good response rates that I am good at dodging if a jart is headed my way. I have no puncture wounds.
I'm going to give a plug to somebody else who's been on the show. So Marilla's Mindful Supplies has a reusable water balloon thingy that it's not a water balloon. You fill it up and you throw it and whatever, and then you can use it again. And it's not like filling a balloon all the time. That probably could make it sooner or later.
It could. I want to go test that. Yeah. Let's find a nice hot day and we'll test that.
Well, I bet you we get her to give us some for free.
All right.
Okay.
It's a deal.
At least one apiece. So we've gone with the food. Now the other thing is that you have this wonderful theater there, the 300-seat theater.
We do, and we've been doing our best, especially through this summer, to take better advantage of that theater space right off of our main lobby. It's the Paychex Theater, and we have events going on there. We have story readings. We have performances. That's an enhancement to your museum experience, and we are hopeful that we'll be continuing that through the fall and beyond.
Well, it's as sophisticated as a theater construction as you ever find, with your booth and the way the seats are arranged and whatever. I was really impressed when we were there for our Christmas show last year. The Toy Hall of Fame, let's go over a couple more of those Toys Hall of Fame. I think people like hearing about that. Now, one of the questions that I have too is that when you do this, and let's say, Hasbro's the toy, do people come over from the company that actually made it, if they're around, and they accept a plaque or award or something like that? Do you have a presentation ceremony?
We do have a presentation ceremony that happens on usually the first Thursday of November. This year it's on November 9th. And we get people from Mattel, from Hasbro, to name just the two biggest toy companies. But what really makes me happy is when we get people with personal involvement. So when we inducted the Wiffle Ball, we had the second and third generation of the Mulaney family who invented the Wiffle Ball come and be part of our ceremony. So seeing them accept this award on behalf of their grandfather who invented the Wiffle Ball was an extra treat and an extra level of meaning that we could add to the event.
Well, you're talking about something that's woven its way into the culture of the country. I mean, Wiffle Ball. I mean,
right. It's iconic.
It really is iconic. I mean, I say that about some things about Rochester, like the Red Wings. The Red Wings have woven their way into the culture of Rochester. So, Wiffle Ball, name a couple more.
We also have, sometimes when people can't be there in person, so a couple years ago we inducted Jenga, that toppling game with wooden blocks, And its inventor is an English woman named Leslie Scott. She wasn't able to be there in person, but she recorded a lovely thank you message on video that we were able to have as part of the event. We also have had people from Fisher-Price, for instance. The year we inducted the Fisher-Price Little People, they did this really deceptive thing and said they were having a staff retreat and took a busload of people, unbeknownst to them, to the Strong. And they were there to their delight and surprise when the Little People got inducted. So we had 30 people from Fisher-Price jumping up and down and screaming when the Fisher-Price Little People got into the Hall of Fame. So that was a thrill for us and for them.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of activity around the museum, too. You have a hotel that's just been built there. And what are there, apartments?
There are about 250,
really
250 apartments around the museum in what we call the neighborhood of play. There's a Hampton Inn and Suites right across the street from us. Mm-hmm. It's got an indoor pool. We are now offering 2-day passes to the museum. So if you're here for the weekend, for instance, with the family and the kids have reached their saturation limit at the museum, go back to the room, put your feet up, have a swim, come back the next day on a 2-day museum pass. It's a deal that works out really well and that we've never had the chance to offer before.
Yeah, and parking is very convenient, right? I mean, you got enough
We've
parking.
got a garage right there with almost 1,000 spaces.
When we come back from this break, I want to just ask you about some of the other things that you do. One of the things in particular, the G2 program, because I think that's very important.
I'll be happy to talk about G2.
Okay, so we're heading into another break, and we'll see you at the other side. Well, welcome everybody back to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're talking today to Christopher Bensch, the Chief Curator of the Strong National Museum of Play. And it's not just a museum of play. I mean, you do other things. I mean, let's talk about the G2 program, because Nita was involved with the G2 program. It's kind of an outreach thing, and now it's under your umbrella, right?
That's right. G2 is an organization that matches grown-ups with elementary school kids for dedicated playtime as part of their school day. One of our principles of the importance of play is it needs to be part of our educational system. It can't all be teaching to the test. Play develops us in spiritual, physical, mental ways that other kinds of learning don't necessarily. So having this opportunity to have yourself matched with a caring grown-up who wants to play with you is a great thing. And we've found that kids who experience that are more interested in coming to school. They study better, they learn better, they feel a sense of ownership of what they're up to in their educational experience. And it's good for the grown-ups too.
Well, let's go a little deeper into this, because since Nita has been involved with it for quite some time, I'm familiar with the program. Maybe some people aren't as much as I would like them to be. The whole idea is for grown-ups to go into schools and play with younger children. But the key is that the play is child-directed. So the child is saying what the rules are, how they want to grade things, whatever, and the child is now in control, and the child has this feeling of accomplishment and support, and whatever the child wants to do. You know, if blue is gray and gray is blue, I mean, that's what the child can do. And it seems like Nita gets a lot out of this, because you're having an interaction with a child, and the child's getting a lot out of it. And she tells the story one day is that she's walking out of the classroom, and one little kid is saying to the other little kid, says, "I think we did these old people a lot of good today, don't you think?"
That's lovely. And yes, that child-directed part is key, because so many kids' lives are overmanaged by grown-ups and overstructured with play that is really regimented rather than being free and flowing and flexible. And G2, which by the way stands originally for Generation 2, it's matching up 2 different generations, is a way to let kids take charge of their play in a collaborative way with a caring grown-up.
Well, let's do a little retail on this. I mean, because the G2 program is looking for volunteers, right?
We are always looking for volunteers, and from one year to the next, we keep getting more schools who want to be involved. So the more that we can have a cadre of volunteers who are interested and ready and eager to go, the more we'll be able to fill all those needs and those requests.
And we were talking too that there's play and there's play. There's play and there's adult play. And you were mentioning the National Archive of Game Show History, right? Right.
That's a new element at the museum. 2 years ago, 2 veterans of the game show business came to us and said, nowhere in the country is the history of game shows being preserved. Would you like to be that place? And I said, yes, we would, but I don't know anyone. And they said, but we do. So they have been putting us in touch with veterans of the game show world. They have been doing oral histories with people. I think part of that was prompted by the loss of Alex Trebek, that here were stories from key people who we know either in front of the camera in game shows or are the creative elements behind them. And we needed to capture those stories before they were gone, before it was too late. So we've been collecting stories. They're on our website as museumofplay.org. And we're also collecting objects. So I just acquired the part of a Plinko game from The Price is Right. And I got one of the 1980s vintage podiums from Jeopardy that the contestants stand behind. So these are things that you've seen on your screen a million times. You've yelled at those contestants to go for what's behind door number 2 or whatever it is. And these are the things that you're going to be able to see and experience when we open our game show exhibit in 2026.
Yeah, I never really thought of that. All the game show stuff, that is play. I mean, they're making money from it. Somebody's winning and somebody's losing, but that is the definition of, play sometimes.
Right. And
that's right.
It's fun to watch other people play. You're playing at home. Can I answer this question faster than that contestant?
Yeah.
And then there's the spillover that game shows often create the home version of concentration or password or whatever that you can play around your kitchen table at home.
What fascinates me is the evolution of play and games sometimes. I mean, there's the traditional Monopoly, and then there's the Monopoly that you do on the screen with, and I hate that. I mean, I want my traditional, I want my original Monopoly. I don't want this thing on the screen. I just want to do that.
But there's also variations. There's speed versions of Monopoly out there. We have a version from a few years back called Monopoly Here and Now that is updated, so you don't collect $200 as you pass go. You collect, I think it's $20,000 because we know inflation is a thing. And the playing pieces are a cell phone, a Starbucks mug, a Toyota Prius. That's right. It's for our own time and place.
That's right. You collect crypto, and at the end, you have nothing.
No more luxury tax. You pay interest on your credit card bill.
Just on your credit card. Well, if it's in Europe, you pay a VAT tax.
Right.
There you go. So before we get too close to the end of the show, let's do a little retail here. How do we get in touch with you or the organization, the web address and so?
The one-stop shopping is at museumofplay.org. You can find out about your visit, whether tickets are available. Let me just put in a plug. If you buy your tickets online, you save $2 per ticket. So do that before you come to the museum, or even if you're parking in our garage and you want to buy your tickets right then, it's still a $2 savings per ticket. So that's such a great deal, as is our annual membership, which is such an incredible bargain. If you're a family of 4, I think you only have to come twice in a year, and you're ahead of the game in terms of the price.
No, your family deal is really good. And, since you were talking about visiting, it brings up another topic, the international research deal. Let's talk about that before we go.
We just held the annual meeting of the International Toy Research Association, a group of scholars and people who study the topic of toys and play all over the world. This was the first time that group had ever met outside of Europe, and they came to the Strong National Museum of Play, people from 22 countries, Hong Kong, Thailand, India, people from all over sharing their insights, sharing their experiences, and equally important, having the chance for themselves to play in our playful environment.
Well, Chris Bensch, you are always a delight to have on the show. I appreciate you having the time to come in and talk to me in my studio. And I have just realized something. This is my play. This is what
it shows, Dom. It shows.
This is my play. Doesn't mean I'm good at it. It just means that this is how I play, and it's a delight to have you on. And you do so many great things, and you're an asset to Rochester. And like I said, woven your way into the culture of Rochester the museum has. So with that, we're going to say, we're going to put in a wrapper for another week, and we'll see everybody next week on the No Nonsense Roundtable. Chris, thank you again.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every weekend from 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham 1180. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.